Hey guys, virtual greetings from Castine. It's another beautiful Tuesday here. It's sitting about 70 degrees. No clouds in the sky really. Pretty sunny out. I'm looking forward to getting outside. So I'm gonna try to make this quick. If you haven't already seen the 1 minute safety video on safe backing, please take a look at that. That's something that our safety culture as a department has changed just in the past year in a very positive way when it comes to backing. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a time when trucks are backing into the station without spotters. Usually, even if there's no communication, someone will just silently jump in, start backing a truck in. So we're doing really good with that. That's just a minute-long reminder on safe practices. There's a 10-minute video on hand tools. That's our gear minute for today. That's Wildland Hand Tools. Take a look at that and let me know what you think. We're talking about wildland stuff today, so that kind of goes hand in hand. As with all these trainings, I always learn a ton from when I'm compiling. So that video to me, I learned quite a bit on like the 5 S's of the hand tools. Talked about maintenance and sharpening them and all that. So take a look. It talks about basic uses as well. As far as our hand tools go, those are all hanging up on the wall by Rescue, on the operator's side of Rescue. We also have all the wildland helmets there. We have Indian packs full and ready to go there as well. Our hose packs our forestry hose packs are in yellow bags with a length of forestry line. Those are in the red cubbies behind tanker, engine 5, right in that area. We have chainsaws in Rescue. You also probably need that for wildland stuff. And then we have a ton of stuff in brush. We have 2 Indian packs and a ton of hand tools hanging off that thing. Speaking of, actually one more thing before we talk about brush. For wildland fires, you're going to want to wear your Nomex jumpsuit. If you don't have one and you're in Castine for the summer, let me know and we'll try to get one issued to you. But for the most part, anyone that's in Castine that responds during the summertime, I think, to the best of my knowledge, has a Nomex jumpsuit. So wear that with a sturdy pair of boots to protect your feet, and that's along with the helmet. That's what we're going to be wearing at forest fires here. Brush. So our run card. Someone here? Someone just. Sorry. Our run card for forest fires goes engine 6, engine 5, tanker, rescue. That was developed before we had brush. Brush is our newest addition of our newest of our apparatuses. Apparati. That doesn't sound right. Someone correct me on that, because neither of those sounds right to me. But I'm not an English major, so I wouldn't know. Apparati. Vehicles. It's our newest vehicle. Has a ton of stuff on it. If the fire is on next, say it's a grass fire on the golf course or another fire in Witherly Woods like we had about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago now, make sure brush gets out first. That's a good way to get tools and equipment and 2 firefighters out there to anything on neck quickly. That thing's not going to make it off neck. I wouldn't even try. That's, as we know, it's battery powered. Tops out at like 17 miles an hour going downhill. So great for on neck stuff, not so great for off neck stuff. Okay, so we'll talk about basic, quick and dirty wildland fire behavior. This doesn't substitute any kind of wildland course. Again, this is a crash course for our members on fire behavior in a wildland interface. I am by no means an expert on this. I learned most of this stuff in the past 2 days. As I do with all these Tuesday trainings, I compile all this information, and most of this information that I present to you is also new to me. So I'm learning quite a bit with these trainings as well. So again, this is all relatively new information to me. If I screw something up, I'm sorry. But yeah, so we have a fire triangle for wildland fires. It's not the same as the fire triangle that we've all learned about, throughout our time in the fire service and physics, whatever. This is the fire triangle that impacts fire behavior in a wildland interface. So you have the three legs of this is topography, weather, and fuel. And each one of those plays a pretty key part in how a fire behaves, or how a wildland fire behaves. So we'll start with weather. So when you have days or periods of time where you have low humidity, low or little to none precipitation, and high temperature, that's usually what the Forest Service classifies as a high or very high fire danger day. Usually during those days, there is no open flames, no burning, no fireworks, but we've seen an increase in it anyways. What that does, the days like that, periods of time like that, where it's dry, no humidity, no precipitation, produces dry underbrush, like dry, like dead leaves, pine needles, stuff that's all dried out, and that develops a very good condition for a wildland fire to take off. And then you have wind as well. So wind increases. A wildland fire is going to go, at least a surface fire, a crown fire, which I'll talk about in a minute. Those are going to go in the direction of the wind. Wind is extremely unpredictable. It's a large variable when it comes to fire behavior. Because of wind, wildland fire behavior is very unpredictable. A fire is always, most of the time, going to travel in the direction of the wind. On a windy day also, if a fire is moving in the direction of the wind also aids in heating up the materials and the fuel in front of the fire as well. And so a windy fire is going to be a very rapid, quick burning fire. I keep hearing noises like someone's walking up the stairs trying to scare me. Something. So sorry. But so a day with a wind-driven fire is going to be quickly moving, fast spreading, and that also leads to the variability of the interface here. So this kind of interface, wildland interface. That is weather, and then we talked about fuel a little bit. So when you have dry fuel, that is going to help kindle a wildland fire a little more. Types of fuel is important, right? If you have a fuel that has a small mass to surface area ratio, that tends to be better fuel. So that's talking about dead leaves, pine needles, small branches, brush, dead brush especially. Where there's a lot of surface area, but it's not a lot of mass, that catches quickly and it moves quickly. It's not as intense as other types of fires, but it's quick moving, and it's fast burning. When you have something with a higher mass to surface area ratio, so dried out logs, dead logs, larger branches for trees, root systems, stuff like that, those take longer to actually kindle. That particular, whether it's a log or a root, whatever, it takes longer to kindle, but it burns more intensely and it burns slower. So when you have a higher surface area to mass ratio with your fuel, it is a quicker, it's a slower burn, but it's more intense. So keep that in mind. Topography plays a very large role. Fires burn quicker uphill. They burn faster uphill. And that's because as your slope of as the grade of the ground that you're working on, as the grade and the slope of the ground increases, the flame height, say this is 0 grade, right? It's a pretty even grade, and your flame height is here. It's going to travel because it has access to, lower parts of these trees. But as your slope increases, your flame height, with the same amount of flame height, is able to reach higher up into your fuel source. And that, backed by the wind uphill, is a very dangerous, fast-moving fire. Because there's more fuel available to a fire moving uphill, the flames are higher, the flames are able to reach the tops of these trees because of that steep slope. And again, backed by wind, that's going to move up very, very quickly. So all of those three combined into the little wildland triangle affects fire behavior, affects how fast it spreads. This is a bird's eye view of a wildland fire. So you have different parts. Now this, we'll start origin. Right here, this little purple X is the origin of the fire. Origins, I was actually going to try to impress you guys with statistics I found on the Maine Forest Service website about percentages of how fires start. The numbers, I am not a math whiz by any means, as most of you know, but the numbers didn't really add up. Other than that, there's a lot of great resources on the Forest Service website, but it said that 92% of forest fires in the state of Maine start by human activity, and the remaining 35% start by lightning strikes. I checked like 10 times. That does not add up to 100%. I'm sure that was just a small oversight. But I'm sure the numbers are in that ballpark. It's a greater, more fires start at the origin due to human activity. There was the past week, the better part of a week, it's been a ton of forest fires in the county. Franklin, Surrey, Hancock, Blue Hill, Brooksville, Penobscot. Those they're all extensive fires in those towns in the past couple days even, and most of them the definitive cause, and of course it's all under investigation, but from what we hear over the radio, it's mostly from human behavior, whether it's negligence or they have a permit to burn something and it just gets out of control. But usually the ones we see are from human behavior. We had one down by Morse Cove 2 months ago, a month ago. It all blends together at some point. And the IC, after IC's investigation, he determined that it was caused by like a flicked cigarette butt or something of that nature. So usually it's human interaction, human activity. So that's your origin. Again, that could also be a lightning strike. But in the direction of the slope, so this is going uphill, this bird's eye view again, but this is all uphill and it's backed by the wind, you have your different parts of your fire. Now this, when the fire starts at an origin here and it's moving in this direction with the wind and an increasing grade, an increasing slope, that's called a heading fire. That's because this part of the fire is called the head. This is the most fast-moving part of the fire, and it spreads in a line. Now that's something a lot of people don't realize, is that all these forest fires, it's not one big swath of flames. It's this black represents the burned out area. You have a left flank and a right flank. Yeah, left flank, right flank, and then you have the heel of the fire or the back of the fire. And these are all slower moving parts of the fire because the wind and the slope isn't in its favor. When a fire is moving in the direction of the wind and the slope, it's a heading fire. If it's tending to move towards the heel, it's called a backing fire. And then you have a flanking fire if the wind decides to shift. Now, something to realize is that the wind is the biggest variable when it comes to forest fires. So if all of a sudden the wind shifts, you're going to start seeing flames. You're going to start seeing a heading fire become a flanking fire. And when a flanking fire happens, you tend to see these fingers right here. That's what they're called. They're called fingers. Usually fingers, from what I've been able to see in my research, fingers are usually at an angle to the wind. It's usually not in line with the wind. Usually if we're looking at fingers like this, the wind's going to be in this direction, or maybe even at a 90 degree to these fingers. Inside this unburned area here, this is called a pocket. It's a very dangerous place to be. As you can imagine, you're slowly being flanked and encased by the fire on three sides. Really, there's no escape if you're deep in a pocket like this. You'll be very quickly overtaken. This is called a spot. So that could be from burning fuel in the air. So like if there's ash, like burning ash traveling upward, up with the wind, and it's landing in other dry areas, and you get a little spot. It's basically a small pocket of fire that isn't connected to the origin. It's in a different area. It's not connected to the origin. It started from a secondary means. So again, flames, burning ash, burning materials up in the air, aloft, landing, making ground fall. That's where you get spots or hot spots. Where were we? So there are 3 different types of patterns when we look at a wildland fire. Different ways that flames travel. You have a ground fire, a surface fire, and a crown style fire, or a crown fire. So this, I didn't draw a diagram for it, but I'll use this diagram to kind of explain it. A ground fire happens when you have a lot of accumulation of dead leaves, sticks, branches, stuff like that, roots, dry logs under the dirt, and that's all burning. Usually you see embers, you see a lot of smoke. You'll still see some flames, but for the most part, the flames are going to be not quite as big as with other types of fire. So that's all stuff that's underfoot, that's underground really. That's where our hand tools come into play. That's why we want to use like a Pulaski and start digging that stuff up, or a spade and start digging it up in order to expose the roots that are on fire and put water on it. Then you have a surface fire. So a surface fire is what we're seeing right here in this area. It's exactly what it sounds like. The surface of the ground is on fire, and lower branches, low shrubbery is also on fire. The third type is a crown fire, and that's when the tops of the trees are all on fire and nothing really below the tops of the trees are on fire. Something to pay attention to is that it's not any kind of large-scale forest fire isn't going to be just one of these. You're not going to see just a ground fire if it's large. Usually it's a combination of 2, or most of the time it's all 3. So if we're looking at something like this could have started as a ground fire burning in these roots here, then it traveled up the roots into the base of these trees and lit shrubs and lower branches on fire, and then it became a surface fire. As that surface fire increased and our flame height increased, we can see that it's starting to travel up these trees here, and we can see how it could very easily take off into the crowns of the trees and become a crown fire. So that's the 3 different types of movement of these of the flames of forest fires. Basic stuff. Fighting wildland fires, just remember you always want to be in the black, at least a foot in the black. If you're using an Indian pack to kill hot spots, being in the black and the burnt fuel is the safest spot, because a fire can't sustain itself if that fuel's already burned. So you don't want to be right here trying to put these flames out, because that fire could quickly overtake you. You want to be in the black. That way that fire can't come back and it can't burn what's already been burned. Safest spots in the black. If you're moving into the black to fight a forest fire, you want to come in at the heel of the fire, at the back of the fire, because that's where the flames are the least intense. That's the safest spot to enter this black area. I think that's about it as far as fire behavior goes. Again, by no means am I an expert in this. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, please use the attendance form as a means to relay that information. We had a lot of good feedback last week, and this training is related to that feedback, because we had a couple people say that they really liked the hand-drawn graphics. It gives you something to look at. And so I took that and I did the same thing. And I'll continue to do that if that's what everyone likes. Just feedback's always good. Bad, good, whatever. Give me some feedback so I know what's the best way to capture your attention for this half hour to hour each week. Other than that, I appreciate you guys watching. Someone look up that apparatus versus apparati. I'm pretty sure it's apparatuses, but neither of those sound right to me. So let me know if you figure it out, or if you're just smarter than me and know. I think that's about it. I wanted to apologize to Kathy. Kathy, for a number of weeks, has been asking for the reappearance of Meemaw. I haven't been able to work that in, so Kathy, keep your ear out. Sorry about that, but we'll work on that. Other than that, I hope everyone has a safe rest of your week. We'll see you next Tuesday, and stay safe. Hope your families are safe. Stay hunkered down and don't